Good afternoon, everybody. It's 2:15 on 9th of September 2025. It is a Tuesday. And yeah, in the latest news, it's always upsetting, funny things going on. Not only Peter Navarro, it's one of Trump's economic advisors. I guess people call him the tariff man, I guess. I don't know. Something to do with Trump's tariffs. Look at some of this old stuff from Soviet times down here. This is a buffalo, if you can still make it out. It's an old iron fence going through here from the Stalin era times, I guess. Maybe it's even before that time. Well, a lot of this stuff was built in the 30s, 1930s or so sometimes a little earlier, and maybe like in this case, looks like they still might have their old windows. But anyway, let's keep going, except for my distractions here. Yeah, Peter Navarro. He's coming out and he's saying to media, to the corporate media, that the BRICS are vampires and that the US basically will defeat them. And there's other economic people in the Trump administration, they're talking about how they're going to virtually destroy all the BRICS countries. And obviously, it's not a bad strategy. I guess you would find out who the weakest is and go after them first. But then there are some of the new members, like Indonesia. Wait, did I just say Indonesia? Just so happens there's a coup d'etat kind of thing going on there. It's a color revolution, as you all know. So that's actually potential to be a really, really powerful, economically powerful place, Indonesia. So obviously, it's a new member. And I guess there's certain things that are being exploited. I think some of the officials there, maybe they're being a little bit too generous to themselves with salaries and things. And it looks like some sort of forces have influenced the people to be unhappy about it. But as I've said already before, I've lived in countries where the hierarchy takes it upon themselves to be very generous to themselves as well. And for example, when you get a country, an entire country with just over 100,000 people, and yet the pay of the prime minister is the same as the president of the United States, I think that's a little bit kind of fuzzy there. And then there are even, believe it or not, there are even people within that government, within that very same government, based on how they divvy up some sort of benefits. I'll give you an example, but they get even paid more than the prime minister. For example, if you are maybe a lawyer or you have a law degree, which a lot of them do, most of them, as you all know, it's always been that way. A lot of since even the founding fathers, Thomas Jefferson, all of them, most of them are lawyers. As a matter of fact, I did an essay once in a university class, and there's a professor there. He didn't like students that were very high grade point average and that do very well and excel in things. So he took it upon himself to try to always knock them down a notch. And this is just a side story. And I was another student. I know that he was also up in the higher echelons of the University of Washington. And so he was up in, what was I? Phi Alpha Theta. I was Phi Alpha Theta, a grade point average and all that. And this guy, this professor, and he had a few little things to his credit, but a lot of students always trying to get rid of this guy, but he had tenure, so you can't get rid of him. And he's, but like I said, when you write good papers and good test exams and things like that, he tries to give you bad grades, and he was giving me grades I'd never had since I was in college. I was nearly a straight A student in the university. And this guy was giving me C's on my paper. And luckily, it was right before the time when you can withdraw out of the classes so that it wouldn't go and reflect in your grade point average. I believe he was giving me a D on one of them. And one of the questions, was something about like the class of where the revolutionary leaders come from. And I said a lot of them are lawyers and things. He said, now Fidel Castro might have been, but I don't know where you get this stuff, he said to me. And I said, well, what about Vladimir Lenin? Well, Lenin might have been. What about the founding fathers of, well, And then he was gonna, I think on that one, he was gonna raise my grade to a C, because he couldn't dispute anything that I wrote in my essay. What a friggin' jerk. And then there were students going around I saw on the campus, you know, that knew me. They did not know that I had a class with this guy, and he was saying, oh, there's this one guy, and I've taken him for a political science class, and he's, you know, he was giving this guy bad grades too. Anyway, he was trying to get enough people to sign on this. Of course I signed it, to maybe, in spite of this professor having tenure, to basically have him lose his tenure and maybe kick him out. And I guess that was not the first move that was happening. So there are professors in there, they purposely try to give you bad grades, maybe the better you are. And there was another person that was in that class, and I was kind of, because I had him in a history class, it was very strange, and he was in there and he's kind of laughing all the time, but he was taking it, what does they call it, where you don't take it for a grade, you just take it so you're able to sit in the class and all that. And then he told me that he was doing that to watch people, everybody drop out of the class and everybody get upset about the grades that he's given them. And he thought it was kind of funny. So, oh, it's auditing, you call it auditing. He was auditing the class. Absolutely incredible. So, but now I got myself so far away from the topic that I forgot what I was talking about, so I might have to look at this again here. Let's see, bricks, vampires, Navarro. I was going to give you well, that was the example, I guess. Kind of. Let's see. Well, anyway, whatever it was I was going to get at and got myself distracted. Okay, let's see. But anyway, these guys, they want to defeat the BRICS countries. And, you know, well, good luck on that. And they're sure that they're going to do it. So they're, I guess Donald Trump is actively talking with the European leaders, trying to figure out ways to destroy these countries' economies, like with tariffs and sanctions and anything else that they can come up with. It's incredible. You know, when you are so terrible at governing your own countries, plural, that you have to take actions to sabotage the economies of other countries. That's really something, if you ask me. When that is your, I don't know. What do you call that? You could probably make some kind of a euphemistic sort of a comparison with something like that. You know, it's like, it's actually, you know, that's an American thing. I just now realized at one point in time. Remember, was it like Nancy Kerrigan, I guess? I'm not sure that was her name. And then there was there were two Olympic ice skaters. You know, nice ladies. I like the brunette one, the one that was actually better apparently. And then there was one from Oregon, and I come from that area, so I should like her better. But anyway, somehow, and I believe, I don't know if it's somebody from her team or if it was the blonde girl herself, but they had whacked this woman in the shins to try to keep her out of the Olympics, so that this other one, and I'm trying to think of the name, maybe some of you guys out there will remember that. So anyway, so they whacked this woman in the shins to make so that the other one would be the one that would go to the Olympics, apparently. Wow. So, and that's kind of like what America is doing right now, and of course the European allies. Well, that's the whole process, I guess, now in the West. I guess that's how they operate, to whack their competitors in the shins because they cannot keep up with them, because they're not good enough. So they knock the other ones down. Wow. Some people would call that being a sore loser, unsportsmanlike conduct, or whatever. So what do you call that? It's similar to going to war with somebody. Well, that's, you know, kind of in effect what's going on here. Going to war with somebody to keep their economy down because they are beating you. I guess maybe that was the reason for the pivot to China. But so many people, you guys all know this, in the United States, and a lot of them in the West, especially Britain and the United States, but to a certain extent, maybe some other people. As you know, that's why they cozy up to the Baltic states, Maybe there were some in Poland apparently too, but they really, really badly want to destroy Russia. They want to get Russia. And if they if they don't feel that way, they cultivate this in them, by using the Banderites. They even have a Banderite attitude in Poland where in truth they're against the Banderites, but yet they act like Banderites themselves when it comes to Russia. It's really incredible. It's just an incredible thing. It's a big psychological, sociological bunch of crap going on, and I'm sure most of the rest of you can see this all as well. But anyway, get your enemy, knock them down, because you can't compete with them. Gosh, damn. What other kind of examples can a person make of that? It's like sabotaging. What somebody did something the other day. Oh, I think it was one of these flotilla ships that are going to Israel, and I don't think it was the one that who's this crazy girl, this Greta Thunberg. I don't think it was her ship, but somebody set fire. Apparently, they think it's very possible that somebody set fire to the the life vests or whatever like that, so it started a fire in the ship. Some people are saying, oh no, somebody threw a cigarette in there. I don't know why somebody would throw a cigarette in there. If you know some Dutch people are like that, It's really strange. I like Dutch people, but you've been to some parties, when I was in Germany, and I was, lived in that area right near the Dutch border, and when a lot of times Dutch people are there, and I don't understand it. They will, at a party, they'll throw their cigarette on the floor and then stamp it out, either on the floor or even in the carpet of whoever's house it is having the party, stomping out cigarettes in your carpet. So it's kind of like, well, gee, I don't really want to take a chance in inviting Dutch people to my party, but I've been to some other Dutch parties too, and some real crazy stuff. High school, there was a high school thing once. We got stranded a lot of us in Amsterdam. We called it Amsterdam because we got stranded there. And so, anyway, these guys, and I don't even know. I don't even know how it came up that way. And this was a long time ago. This was back in the 1980s. Anyway, we ended up in some kind of a high school thing. I'm pretty sure, because these were younger people, and it was like a party, and it was, I don't know, it was like a school gym maybe or something like that. And it was weird because it's nothing like what you would have in the States. But there were like lesbian girls there, and I believe maybe even homosexual men. I don't know, but lots of, kind of freaky. This is the 80s, baby. I'm talking to you about the 80s. Some kind of a punky looking sort of thing, which wasn't a big deal so much to me back then. I don't think we had that when I was in school, but openly women kissing each other and all that kind of stuff. So it was just a lot, I don't know, ahead of its time, maybe you would say. I don't know. Americans, we thought that was like, oh, soldiers are looking at that. But anyway, I'm trying to stretch this out because I don't really have that much. There's a lot of news, but I didn't put it all out. So, but anyway, this Peter Navarro, it's incredible stuff. I tell you what, the U.S., even against Russia, it's kind of a friendly, we're going to sabotage you. We're going to trick you. We're going to do whatever we can to destroy you. But let's be friends. That's the Donald Trump attitude. It's really incredible. I'll tell you what, it's better than Biden basically coming out and just threatening, because then there really was no chance of any sort of a friendship or peace or cooperation. And there is going to be some cooperation probably in the Arctic between the United States and Russia, and apparently, according to Vladimir Putin, on the Zaporozhye power plant. And as you all know, that every single week Ukraine bombs it, sends drones or something there, in some form of an attack on the Zaporozhye nuclear power plant, biggest nuclear power plant in Europe, maybe in the world. I think 7 reactors. Wow. And but so far they haven't caused anything to cause a Chernobyl effect yet. And if they do, guess what direction it goes for the most part? Most of that goes to the west, young man, to the west. It goes into Europe. Maybe they're hoping it's going to go into some place like Hungary, Serbia, the countries that Ukraine doesn't like in the European Union. Isn't that crazy? Anyway, so Another thing these guys said, I guess that maybe it was Peter Navarro. Anyway, there's other officials, and they're pretty much of the same mind. They said that the world needs the United States. And some of these people are saying maybe before they are able to totally collapse these countries, India will come to its senses and come back with their, I said this in other videos, come back, you know, with their head bowed, their tail between their legs, and beg for forgiveness for the United States and saying, we'll pay the big tariffs, we'll pay the big tariff, or maybe actually what it probably is we'll make a tariff deal with you and probably end up paying 25% tariffs and whatever. And they say that India needs the United States, I guess, because that's their major customer. And it looks like they're going to be stepping up in the BRICS, and they're going to all find ways to buy India products to make up for the loss that India is going to be losing. But when it comes right down to it, I guess, as a lot of people so rightly said, the tariffs are not, even if you say that it's put on India, the real truth is the tariffs get put on the American people. It raises the cost of all the Indian products for the American people. And that's how tariffs work. So it's like Donald Trump is punishing the American people. I told you he was a Putin agent. Anyway. Let's get to Israel, maybe. Israel's not only destroying all these large buildings throughout Gaza. If you guys have been seeing all this stuff, anything that's the tallest buildings, all of them in any towns and or areas or cities or anything throughout all of Gaza, they're destroying all of them with either, you know, they set demolitions, you know, like what looked like what happened on Building 7 on 9/11, and even in the other two World Trade Center towers, by dancing Israelis. It's a lot of people are saying Israelis set those demolitions in those towers in New York on September 11th. Anyway, but let's say that they're doing demolitions in a lot of places in Israel, and of course they're sending a lot of these bombs, and that's another thing. That's another big article. Some people, and I've been saying this already for a long time, and you guys already know this, but the United States is flooding Israel with bombs. So finally some other people are now caught up with that, and they're also saying it. I think this was in Russia. Russians were saying this, that they're flooding Israel with with bombs. And you already saw this stuff back, you know, when Zelensky is begging for more and more bombs and things, and Biden said, oh, I have to send you cluster bombs because we don't have any bombs anymore. We sent you all of our bombs, which of course was a lie, and I was saying it even long before that. I said, that's a lie. The United States has a lot of bombs. And I'll tell you what, I had a British friend. He was on an air base, and his job was he was like a corporal or something, so he's got a simple job. I mean, he had other jobs, but one of his side jobs is, you know, like mine was fire safety sergeant and all that kind of stuff. I was driver's trainer and driver's tester, you know, getting people their license, all that kind of crap. But I had my other jobs and things as well. I was in a military intelligence battalion and all that. But anyway, this guy, one of his thing was the inventory of the nuclear weapons that Britain had on that base, at least in Germany. And when they announced in Great Britain and all throughout the world that Great Britain had removed all of their nuclear weapons from Germany, all of the ones that he was supposed to be keeping inventory on, they were all still there. They didn't remove any of them. Zero, absolutely zero. They were all still there. And he was kind of pissed off about that. Later on, this guy worked for UNICEF, by the way. But anyway, he was kind of pissed off about that. So he was saving money for when he got out, but then he decided to save for some odd months again to pay to get out. I guess you can pay to get out early from the British military. So he was so pissed off about that that he paid a lot of money to get out early, to get out of the military early. So that's just a side note. But anyway, Israel getting flooded with bombs, and then there are a lot of bombs I've mentioned many times as well that nobody else wants because they're way too big, and you cannot use them in any sort of residential areas because it doesn't blow up one building. It has huge destruction to all the buildings around it because they're so big and they're so powerful. But Israel takes all these, and that's one reason why they can bomb so many things and destroy so much, like with just one bomb, and all the buildings around them get destroyed as well. But lately, I guess you'd say in the past quite a few months, luckily, if you can even say that word in this case, luckily Israel has now been at least trying to tell a lot of people to evacuate before they're bombing and blowing up everything. So not as many people a lot of the time are getting as killed as they were at the beginning, when they were just indiscriminately bombing everywhere and killing 60 and 70 people with every bomb, and injuring 300. And of course they're still killing quite a few people, like they bomb tent cities, and they're bombing, of course, residential buildings just like Ukraine does. And of course Ukraine's, when they shoot down one of the drones or missiles or something of what Russia is sending to hit military targets, which they just happen to have located at places not that far maybe from residential buildings in Kiev, that anyway, when they get shot down by Kiev, part of the debris might go through a window or hit an apartment in Kiev, and then of course it makes worldwide news and saying Russia is bombing civilian areas, when in fact Ukraine does it every single day. They kill civilians nearly every single day. It doesn't make any news anywhere. It's very much like what you guys saw with this Ukrainian woman, by the way. And she was in, I don't know, some say that she was there only for a short period of time. I think it was in North Carolina. And she was like riding a bus or whatever. Very attractive girl. And I guess she put her hair all underneath her hat. So she looked kind of like your average kind of girl, not anything super, super shocking or something. As she was like going somewhere, she was sitting there on her cell phone, and she wasn't dressing provocatively apparently, even though you can tell she was an attractive woman with a good figure. She was, I think, 23 years old, and some black homeless guy came, sat behind her, and they have this all on footage, and he unfolds his knife, and then of course they didn't show you all of this, but they show you him standing up and cocking his arm, and he stabbed her right in the what is that artery? Is that the carotid artery or something? That brings blood to your brain. He severed it immediately, but he was stabbing her repeatedly. Obviously she died. All the blood was cut off from her brain and everything because he cut that artery first, and there's no mention of it. And some people were even doing this, looking like in the New York Times, like even a week later, and seeing, what about this story? They put the woman's name in, and there was 0 stories in New York Times. Like Washington Post, none of them run any stories on that. None of the corporate media. And then how everybody was saying, including a lot of black people, a lot of black men, a lot of black people are writing that said, if that would have been a black person that got stabbed, it would have been all over America. There would have been hundreds of stories. And of course, sometimes they used as some of the people used as examples as George Floyd. And and the deal is, Donald Trump, what he should say, like Candace Owens, who happens to be black, had said that, and just like the doctor, the real truth is, George Floyd died of a fentanyl overdose. And he has done this before. He's done it before. There's a record of him doing this. So when he was he's sitting in his car, he's doing a drug deal in the car, because he was a drug dealer. He would rob people at gunpoint, and of course they called him the next Jesus, the left. And it's another thing, this guy that stabbed this woman for no reason whatsoever, people were trying to take up a collection for this guy, for his defense, for lawyers, to pay for a very good lawyer. And then they had to take it down because it was so embarrassing. It started going all over the place. But anyway, so a lot of these people, I'm talking about black people for the most part, they said, well, how, if this was a black person, it would have been world news. But when it's a white person, you would think, I'll tell you what, if it was just a regular white American lady, that wouldn't have made any news at all. Just so happens this lady, probably because she's Ukrainian. And of course somebody put the story, she was fleeing from Russian bombings. Well, she was probably not fleeing from Russian bombings. She's probably fleeing from the vast corruption of Ukraine, the most corrupt country on planet Earth. And maybe they took her brother or something like that. Maybe she was even going there to meet her brother or for her father or somebody else who ran over there first. I don't know where she was staying. I don't know anything about it. They're not putting anything like that so far that I've seen in the news. But it just shows how the media works. You know? Yes. So like I'm saying, they don't tell you that the United States gives absolutely everything that Israel wants. Israel comes right out and says it. A lot of the ministers, they come out, and as a matter of fact, they've even said it in the past week. They said, we can do anything we want, to anyone we want, whenever we want, and however we want. We can do anything. And everybody knows that Israel, basically, in so many ways, Israel is the most powerful nation on the planet. Because they control the biggest military on the planet. And they can control the biggest economy on the planet, which is the United States. And that's what Israel does. They have total control. And they have a lot of control in places like the UK as well. And who was it? I think I mentioned already in the last video, there was a US E7. He was a very high sergeant. What is there, only 3 pay grades up above that? So you have to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And then there's, what is it? How many more is there? There's 8. There's only 3 pay grades higher than that for enlisted people in the United States Army. Maybe you can go with 4 if there's Sergeant Major of the Army, and there's always only 1 of those. So anyway, a lot of these, it's not like how many generals you have. There's far less of these high enlisted ranks than there are generals. Just like this woman general that came out, just, was it yesterday? She's a 4-star general. She's like, I don't know what she is, late 40s or mid 40s. Basically, she's saying how they're going to control and take over, what does she call it, the lithium triangle or something like that. I didn't want to do much of a story on that, but I just thought I would tell you guys about it. She's sitting there with 4 stars on her, and then how basically it's so important for the United States to control that entire area. Not just the lithium, but much more. Copper, gold, oil. Absolutely incredible. So, I don't know, I guess I told you men can get pregnant. So, mostly what I was just trying to say, that is the press covers for Israel as well. Big time. It's amazing that there's so many people and there's protests. And you won't see this on corporate news either, but there are millions, literally millions of people, millions of them all over the world protesting against Israel and pro-Palestine. It's absolutely incredible. And yet, those that protest in favor of Palestine are called terrorists and criminals and all that. And it's like, I was going to say this E7, that's what I was going at. This guy, he's like, they're trying to kick him out of the army because he put some post on some social media that he does not appreciate that Israel is conducting a genocide in Palestine. And they called him a threat to national security. So how is he threatening the United States national security? And he said he swore an oath to the United States Constitution. He did not swear an oath to Israel, which is true. Anyway, I mentioned that yesterday. So, wow. But anyway, Israel, they've really gone off the hinges. They're also bombing this. They bombed, they're bombing all these countries. They bomb sometimes some countries every day, like Gaza, of course. I mean, Gaza's not it's a, what do you call that? Should be an autonomous region, but anyway, they bomb them every single day. And like maybe every 3 days they bomb Yemen, and they're bombing Lebanon too. And last night there was a huge, massive bombings, very destructive bombings in Syria, Latakia, and I think many cities. I know there was at least a few cities, but anyway, lots of bombing in Syria yesterday. And obviously Hamas is there, Hezbollah is there. You know the deal is, but they're not in Syria. I don't know what their excuse was for this, but obviously they want to keep the entirety of all of the Middle East into the Stone Age, unless you swear fealty to Israel, such as Jordan. You got to keep a couple. You have to keep a couple friends just to make it look good. So Jordan is one of them. Jordan never does anything. They never lift a finger for any any Muslim country. So, yes, Satanyahu. Yesterday, this was a big one. This was a big one. Satanyahu yesterday, he told Palestinians to leave Gaza. He said to leave. Somebody was asking, well, where? Where are they going to go? You know, he was mentioning, I think it was a couple of weeks ago, that he's going to let them leave. And I guess before, it was like, as everybody says, the biggest open-air prison in the world, and you couldn't leave. But I guess that means now he's going to let them leave. But maybe they're a little bit frustrated because they can't commit anybody to take them. Because as you all know, God gave that land to the Israelis. You saw the contract. Didn't they show it online? Isn't it written there? God's signature is right down there on the bottom. What isn't that? That's what I was told. That's what the Israelis tell us. The Israelis tell you a lot of crap. You know, and then they swear to you that it's the truth. They said that that the Palestinians believe. I remember this one back in the 80s. The Palestinians believe that if they blow themselves up and kill Jews, that they will go to heaven and have 40 virgins or something like that. And then they said it's in the Quran or something and like that. And it's strange that nobody's been able to find that in the Quran, not even in the Haditha. Nowhere. And I guess what they're doing, I think I told you guys about this before, there was some sort of a encounter with Muhammad at some point in time, you know, during the life of Muhammad, which, you know, the recounting of that is called the Haditha. And there was some person that liked women, and he liked, you know, bunka 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 or whatever, and sat with Muhammad at a oasis or something like that. And he asked Muhammad, because he saw Muhammad was a very influential person, and everybody was very impressed with this guy, and he wanted to know, well, what is, you know, and about this new kind, or this new faith or whatever. And so he asked Muhammad, what is it like in heaven? And Muhammad said, well, picture going to bed with 40 virgins, you know. And he knew what this guy's mindset was: women, you know, getting whatever women he can, whenever he can, as many as he can. But in any case, he was just saying that as a metaphor to appeal to this guy, you know, Islam, how great Islam is or something, or going to heaven is to be doing good things and go to heaven. So in other words, he's saying maybe don't be going around like that with all these women doing all this stuff while you're on earth, because maybe you will be rewarded with something much, much better when you go to heaven. That was the point that Muhammad obviously was trying to make to this guy. But of course, those in Israel, and maybe those of Zionist persuasions like Ted Cruz and Mike Huckabee and a bunch of very corrupt people like that will bend truths and make up facts, you know, to fit their own narratives, that they'll tell you something different. Yeah, they'll tell you and sell you something different. So anyway, that's just something that you guys might want to know. And I'll tell you what, I'm not getting as many views and stuff, but I'm just putting out what either my perception of the truth is, or what actual truth is. And a lot of people don't like that. A lot of people, they want to hear only what they want to hear. And there's a lot of people on YouTube that will tell them exactly that. But I don't know. I'm just trying to, you know, put a perspective on things. Oh, the butterfly. Butterfly, butterfly. Something that was at number, in Germany, Nummer 5 lebt. What is it called? Short Circuit in English, a movie. Oh, Stephanie, butterfly, butterfly. Can't forget that one from that movie. When the robot says that. Well, who's leading in robotics anyway? I'll tell you what, they got some fabulous robots in China. And I guess this Boston Dynamics, you know, there seems to be some impressive stuff there. But the Chinese are far ahead of the Boston Dynamics, I think is what that company is called. So, anyway, Satanyahu yesterday, that's where I was getting at. He told all the Palestinians to leave Gaza. Where to? Where to? Where are they supposed to go? I mean, it's like they never even thought of a prospect where they would ever be able to leave. And he says, you've been warned. And basically, he's inferring that when he kills them, it's going to be their fault. So he will kill you, and it's your fault. It's your fault that he kills you. Is that some different kind of a self-defense or something like that? It's like Israel has the right to defend themselves. That's why we bomb Syria. That's why we bomb everybody. Now, in the case of Yemen, you might say that they actually are using a right of self-defense. And of course, they have pledged that they're going to kill a lot of people. It said something about the killing of the firstborn or something like that, whatever that is. I have no idea. But a lot of people, you know, they're kind of getting a little bit disgusted with this rhetoric from Israel. And, you know, it all comes out eventually from a lot of these people, defense ministers and all that, that they, you know, they honestly feel they're better than the rest of the people on the planet. You know, and a lot of time, if it's like Ukraine, you know, we would call that Nazism. And as if you guys, I mentioned that in another video, a lot of the, some of these Nazis, even Zelensky has come out and said this, that they claim a large portion of Russia, Krasnodar, I mean, what was never Ukraine, Krasnodar, and what are some of those other areas there? Oh, of course, Crimea, and Rostov, and Volgograd, a lot of they claim that all of that is part of the kingdom of Ukraine, you know. And if you go back, you find out the history of Russia. It was actually, Kiev was the first capital of Russia, and then they moved it to various areas. Maybe Volgograd was the second capital of Kievan Rus, but it was no longer Kievan Rus because it wasn't in Kiev anymore. It was Rus, and the people that were governed under Kievan Rus were called the Russians. Imagine that. They were called Russians. I've said that before. Okay. But anyway, Netanyahu, Satanyahu, my, oh my, oh my, oh my, if there is a heaven and a hell, we know what's in store for old Satanyahu. Yeah, I don't even want to talk more about this guy. Okay, it's their fault if they don't run somewhere, but they don't know where. It's not like they're allowed to go anywhere. Wow. And the New York Times, what are they saying? They're saying maybe 92 mercenaries, in quotation marks, by the way, 92 mercenaries, American mercenaries, U.S. mercenaries, have been killed in the Ukraine. They said between, this is weird, they said between 1,000 and 7,000 mercenaries are fighting in Ukraine now. It's kind of like, oh, it's give or take 5,000. You know, it's at least 1,000, but give or take another 5,000. I don't know. I don't even think the U.S. and what I'm talking about is have 7,000 people stationed there. And of course, the United States has military stationed in Ukraine. Yes, I said that. I said the United States military has people stationed in Ukraine. They might be under a little bit of a different status. You know, like when I was in the military, they might, you know, some people, maybe their status is removed temporarily, so you're, all of a sudden, you're kind of not in the army. You are and you aren't, depending on what, anyway. But anyway, do you remember, just think of this, when there was a time, and it was also announced, it was announced in the news, corporate news all over the world, that the United States was putting, I think it was 101st, I get the 101st and 82nd always mixed up. Anyway, they were stationing them in Romania, so they sent some thousands of them. Believe it or not, you know, some people say, oh, they're not there anymore, but apparently there are some still there. But anyway, they sent them to Romania, and just maybe a month later, all of a sudden there was a bombing in Donbass, the Ukrainian side of the Donbass, and somebody filmed it. Somebody was filming right after this bombing that the Russians did, and it was kind of strange. All these Ukrainians in there, they had American type military haircuts, they had 101st Airborne tattoos on, and they were speaking perfect American English. So can you imagine that Ukrainians can be that highly intelligent? Makes you really wonder, why did they have to go to English speaking school before they could go to flight school to learn how to fly F-16s when they are so friggin' good in English anyway. And they were, what are their ages? Their ages on that one, I saw that video. This goes back, oh gosh, what is that? This is maybe about 2017. Anyway, it was after the coup d'etat. When, right at that time when old Victoria Nuland was passing out cookies on the Maidan. This stuff is all incredible. All the stuff that they lie to you and they make you forget. They want you to forget this stuff. But anyway, it was... I don't even know what... But anyway, it's like... there was... Let me go back and tell you a little bit more about this bombing, if you guys happen to have forgot that. Anybody? But this military unit was just stationed in Romania, and then all of a sudden there was a bombing in Donbass, and there were these people. They just really looked like they're Americans. You would really have the impression that those were Americans. I mean, I don't know how I can get that, but I didn't. As a matter of fact, there were even videos before that of Americans in Ukraine. And they even admitted, and they even made videos that we're already here. We're here in Ukraine. American uniforms, everything, the whole 9 yards. But anyway, and there's even video footage where some reporter goes up to somebody, a Ukrainian reporter, by the way, goes up to somebody, what is going on here? And the guy says, get that thing out of my face. It makes you wonder, in Ukraine, will they speak English like that? Dressed in American uniforms? I don't really strange stuff, isn't it? But anyway, it's like, as everybody knows, Colonel McGregor had said this, I don't think Scott Ritter and all this. Who is firing off these HIMARS when the Ukrainians are not trained and they can't do this? And and who's firing off all of these other missiles? And what about the new missiles, the ERAMs that are now being delivered to Ukraine? Who's going to fire off those? Wow, isn't that incredible? But you never know how many American soldiers are still stationed in Ukraine. And this article said, at least 1,000. I don't know if you can trust the New York Times to even know when it's time for them to cut their fingernails. So I don't know if you can trust any kind of a place. But in that one bombing raid, anyway, in the Donbass, there was some military commanders on one side of that building. I think it was another restaurant, and these enlisted people were in the pizza place. And how do I know this stuff? How can I be saying? But anyway, they were in a pizza place. And that's, the guys that were filming this, and then they put it on the internet, this bombing and all that sort of stuff. There was no film footage of the restaurant where they had military leaders, and I think they were, I don't know if they even bombed them. Maybe they didn't. But anyway, they were having, I guess you would call that, one is the enlisted club and one is the officers club. I don't know if they were all American, probably not. Anyway, it was a pizza to go, I guess. Wow, that was bombastic pizza at that place, I can tell you. So, but I don't know about 7,000. I really don't. I would say definitely, undeniably, there's way over 2,000. It might be 5,000 American soldiers, maybe at maximum. I would just guess 5,000, maximum. And it might only be 2,000, maybe 2,500 at the minimum. The American soldiers that are stationed in Ukraine right now. And of course there are some mercenaries too, real mercenaries, not like the French. Remember when the French, they supposedly, the Russians also bombed another hospital there, and that was in Ukraine. It was not, again, it was in the Ukraine side. And but the news came out in Ukraine, and they were looking for people that spoke French, because where Russia bombed this big building, they were of military people. They were all French. But gosh, they were just tourists. They were going to see the war zone. Isn't that where you want to go when you're a tourist? Anyway. And of course, a lot of Poles there. A lot of Polish war tourists, I guess you could say. Wow, that's incredible. Donbass pizza! Okay. And the United States, believe it or not, you've heard about these Druzhba pipeline bombings that Ukraine, I guess was it yesterday or the day before? They bombed the fourth one. They're continuing to bomb the Druzhba pipelines that takes Russian oil and gas to Europe, to Ukraine. The organization, the EU, that Ukraine wants to be a part of, and the EU is not really complaining that that these like that these countries will basically collapse. Hungary and Slovakia, they won't be able to heat their people unless they start burning their furniture and huddle around outside in the shed or something like that, because they can't heat their houses because there's no fuel, there's no oil and no gas to heat them anymore. So in any case, Ukraine is bombing us as a fourth time, and then it turns out that the United States is telling the EU to stop, and they're angry, very angry, stop buying Russian oil and gas. Buy it from us, buy it from the United States. Kind of makes you wonder, is there a motive for the US to have anything to do with bombing those Druzhba pipelines? Perish the thought. Do you think the United States would stoop to something like that? Oh, a spy. Some guy spying on me. He's got his equipment out and he's listening to everything I'm saying here. Any case, voice, let's see. Anyway, I'm going to head out that way, but I'm getting close to the end. So bear with me, everybody. Oh, it's going longer than I thought. I thought I wouldn't be able to go 30 minutes. I add a lot of my fluff in here. Okay. So, fourth time bombing. And, isn't it strange that the United States is still sending bombs to Ukraine? I mean, I already told you guys about that in the last, look at some students, young guys there. Maybe even like learning how to build trucks and stuff. There are a lot of schools for the truck factory around here too. Okay, but lots of these bombs, big bombs, massive amounts of bombs, large bombs going to Israel. And they say how the United States military-industrial complex is making big money. And yes, of course, lots of Americans are employed there, you know, making bombs and weapons and things like that. But who is paying? Who's paying for all these bombs? Do you think Israel is paying for these bombs? Israel has never paid for any of these bombs. Israel, can I repeat that again? Israel has never paid for any of these bombs. He's never paid for any of this. They don't pay for anything. They don't pay for any weaponry that comes from the United States. It all comes free of charge. But it doesn't come free of charge. As you know, they have a mechanism, and they've already said this many, many, many times. What they do is they sell this stuff to Israel, and then later down the road, maybe in a couple months or whatever, they forgive the loan. And so Israel comes up and they say, we have never defaulted on a loan. And that's the honest to God truth. That's what they say. They say they've never defaulted on a loan. So they're going to tell you they've always paid the loans back, but they haven't paid them back. They haven't paid any of that money back. They paid none of that money back. Where does that money come from anyway that they get? It comes from the friggin' United States taxpayers, 99% of them. My God. Thank you, American taxpayers. In your name, they're killing innocent people. You know, I'm not telling you to go out and march on the street, get yourself beat up and thrown in jail because you're participating in the terrible, terrible, terrible crime of Israel, of going against Israel's right to kill innocent people. They have a right to kill people. They have a right to kill innocent people. Damn it. And you better not ever say that they don't. You know, they can kill anyone they want, whoever they want, whenever they want, anyway, and however they want. More to Israel. Yeah, anyway. Cryptocurrencies. Now there is a advisor to Vladimir Putin who himself is a very, very gifted economist. So it makes you wonder if there's somebody with economics that Putin hires. They probably got to be really damn good, to be honest with you. This guy's name is, if I can read it in the Russian pronunciation, or was that in the English? Kobyakov, that's probably how it's actually pronounced. Kobyakov. Yeah, that would be the American pronunciation. You know, that's what's terrible when you write it in English letters. So do you pronounce it with the English sound of the letters? Yeah, I guess you would, I guess. Kobyakov, because in Russian it would be Kobuyukov or something. Anyway, he was talking about how they're going to use crypto. I mean, he highly suspects, this is just a big theory, and it looks like the United States is moving in this direction, so it's very, very highly likely. Russians are not stupid people, especially when you have some of the best economists in their entire country that are noticing things and they start sounding the alarm bells. But a lot of what they're talking about, and I guess America's coming up with these different kind of regulations and things, you know, regulating crypto and going into crypto themselves. I think, what is it called? Stable coins, I suppose. But anyway, there's a crypto cloud, and guess what? I guess even partly involved in this, I think, is probably Microsoft and Google and all that. Oh, just happens to be those companies, the same ones that are involved in lots of other fantastic things, right, people? But anyway, so they're going to have, you know, they're having this crypto cloud. I guess it's existing right now. And when it gets to a certain point, it's going to be devalued and like put into stable coins at some point in time anyway. I don't know if it comes automatically or that's everybody has to put it into something called stable coins. You guys would know this stuff better than me. I stay away from crypto because I don't understand it. I don't understand how you can generate a lot of wealth from something poof right out of thin air. Nothing is created really. And then they have crypto mining, Bitcoin mining. They mine this stuff. Only a certain amount can be made or something like that. I have no idea. I don't understand it anyway. None of this stuff. So no products. There is no such thing in truth as a Bitcoin. It is something on the internet. It's in a cloud anyway. It doesn't, anyway. I tell you, I stay away from it because I don't understand it. But right now, a lot of people do make money. Many millionaire stuff. You know, if you guys are into it right now, and you know, and I wouldn't even, it's not that I would never do it. I would maybe do it when they're really something really cheap or whatever. And please don't send me any advertisements to buy crypto from you. I get way too many of those. So anyway, but the debt will be moved into a crypto cloud. Number 2, it will be devalued. And number 3, the step is actually not the step of the destruction. It is a step from the new beginning. They're going to start all over again. So they're going to wipe out the American debt, whatever it is. In this article, it was talking about 35 trillion, but it's, I think, 37 or 38 trillion now. In other way, it's a lot of money. It's a lot of money, baby. And so I don't know. It's something to be aware of. So I would just tell you people out there just to, you know, be a little bit cautious. And I think some people are saying that they're going to do something like that with gold. I don't know. I thought that they always try to devalue gold. Now, I was in gold. I did have gold. And mine was in Germany. And Ursula von der Leyen was coming out. And this was over a year ago. It was like, when is this? Like a year and a half ago. And she was saying that she said this, that she said they're going to probably need to start, it used to be called giving people a haircut, taking a percentage from your bank accounts, you know, to, for the most part, pay their debts in large part and give money to Ukraine, because you have to fight the damn Russians taking those computer chips out of our washing machines, coming in there late at night, and Putin stealing your keys, takes a sock out of your dryer. That's why you're missing a sock. That's why you're missing a sock. I'll tell you what, Putin went, he has people. He comes into your house at night, you know, ask your wife if she's missing any socks. I guarantee you that over the past years, she's been missing some socks. Putin got them, yep. Your car keys, sometimes at night he comes in, he puts your car keys somewhere else, so in the morning you want to go to work, your car keys are I didn't put them there. Putin did it. Putin did everything. I know that. So anyway, just be careful. And yeah, that's about all I have to say for right now, people. And anyway, hope you enjoyed it, and I will see you on the next one. Maybe tomorrow. Probably tomorrow. Maybe. I don't know. Okay. Bye-bye.